Welcome to Heart Riffing, a podcast by way of the heart. Here we explore what it means to reconnect with your essence and live from a place of personal freedom. If you're interested in learning more about our courses, mentoring and workshops, feel free to visit wayoftheheart.com.au. We're so glad you're here and we hope you enjoy the episode. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Heart Riffing. Today, I wanted to look at kind of a part two to an episode that we did a couple of weeks ago on stories and the story that we tell ourselves. And I'm doing a part two because we had a couple of questions, a couple of follow-up questions and caveats, which is great. We really love to hear from you. We love when people engage and interact and comment. And we're still kind of at a small phase in our Way of the Heart journey. So we have the luxury of being able to engage with those comments and those thoughts. So continue to send them through. The first one that's probably worth looking at is we had somebody say, how do I know what my essence is beyond words? Because in the podcast we had mentioned that how do you know if something is your essence, or how do you know if you're being over-identified with a story? And we sort of said, well, it's never, your essence is never the story because your essence exists beyond words. But I feel like if you've never heard that concept before, it's probably a difficult one to get your head around.
Yeah.
So it'd be good to
deal with that.
Delve into that one. And then there's another one which we'll bring up a little bit later as well.
So I think with that one, I think maybe, I don't think flippantly, but we were talking about, what's the taste of peanut butter? And, what
the example that we used.
Rather obscure.
We were hungry.
I was dodging maybe. So when we say, what is my essence beyond words? Another way of saying that is, what is my essence prior to words? The idea in my mind, and again, this is a very Lao Tzu Taoist idea. The idea in my mind is that essence exists prior to a form. So we get identified with a form that we call a Greg. It's a male, it's 6'4", it's 122 kilograms, it's bald, it's got a beard. I get attached to this form, the emotional shape it takes, the physical shape it takes, the emotional shape it takes, the mental shape it takes, the psychological shape it takes. And so I get attached to that and I get identified with that. And this is Bello, right? And this is me. What we're saying with essence is the thing that fills the form, right? And my conviction is it exists prior to form as pure consciousness. It comes into form and it animates form. And when the form decays, it goes. And an essence moves on. I don't think it evaporates. So in Indian tradition, that was Atman. It could be the universal Christ or the Christ energy. It could be true self. We've named all these things true self. We just keep landing on the word essence. And a lot of people just go, what's essence? And I'm just putting the order correct. It's not what is my essence afterwards. It's what is your essence prior to words. When we're starting to use words to try and describe ourselves, we're trying to describe something that's ineffable, something that is almost beyond definition, not because it comes after definition. It's beyond definition because it precedes definition. It comes before, okay? So that's the correct order in my mind, right? Now, then what happens is when that essence fills a form, we make observations about the form, like the ones that I just made about myself, right? And then we get identified and we say, oh, your essence is that. But most of the time we're talking about the form, right? So this was, paradoxically, this was a big conversation in Christianity. And I think we might have mentioned this in one of the earlier podcasts, right? It was a big conversation about how do we talk about an invisible God, right? And some people, the Cappadocians in particular, said, you can talk about a visible God by observing where you think God has acted and then making reference to the activity and then making referential comments from the activity back to the person, right? They call that economic, right? Look at the economy of actions. The economy of actions tells you something, and so therefore we infer that God must be like this because this is the actions, right? We could do exactly the same thing. Greg does this. He acts like that. He behaves like that. Now that's fine, but most of the time what we're talking about when we talk about the economy of my bellowness is we're talking about my physicality, my emotions, my mentality, and the way that my ego projects itself, right? So in a way, using words to talk about the economy, and yes, and we're also talking about my heart energy, because my heart energy is in there expressing my essence anyway, right? But it all just gets muddled when we're looking at the economy of transactions. If we try and say, who am I? Who does my heart tell me who I am at an essential level, right? Then we're going back to a wordless place where essence, this is why I said quite glibly, essence doesn't need words. Essence precedes words, so therefore it transcends words in a way. So like our Christian forefathers, when they were trying to talk about God, St. Augustine came along and said, well, before God did anything, God must have been something. Talk about the God before God did something. And everyone kind of scratched their head and went, so that was Augustine's ontological conversation, right? Ontology is talking about, tell me about the essence of being, not about the essence of transactions, right? So when someone says, what is my essence? You're saying, talk about your ontological, your original being, your original face, right? And, I love that Buddha's, the face you had before your parents were born. Did I have a face before my parents were born? Well, consciousness did, and it inhabited form as the child of, right?
And
so
we did do...
Did we do all that?
We did an episode around this, a number of weeks ago now, but I think the metaphor that helped land this for me was the metaphor of the seed.
Yes.
And the orange tree as a seed, as a seedling, as a young tree, and as something that eventually is bearing fruit.
Yeah.
It is still, at its essence, it is an orange tree.
Yeah.
Even if the form changes, even if the tree, splits in half, even if it, it's the essence of it is exactly the same.
And so maybe we can't say, I'm looking for identifiers of a particular thing. So someone says, okay, cut open an orange. So they get an orange, they cut it open, and then they go, okay, is this the core of the orange? Then they go, no, there's a core. Maybe an apples are better. They eat off, they peel back the skin and they go, oh, this is appleness. And you go, no, this is just the fruit. This is the flesh of the apple. They peel it back and they go, oh, the core. So this is the essence of the apple. And you go, no, it's the seed. Yeah. And so they get the seed and they start to take apart the seed and they cut the seed in half. And inside there's nothing.
Yeah.
Because so nothing is the essence of the apple.
Yeah. And this is
the challenge, right?
Yeah, this is where we get to that key point that essence exists beyond words, because you can define it as much as you want. You can define it down to the atom or the subatomic particle, but at the end of the day, it is something that you can't put words to.
It does, and so this is why the Taoists would say it is a deep, and they would call it dark enigma. It's an enigma. It's like there's a beautiful saying. It's like, I go looking for it. This was Duongzha. He goes, I go looking for it, and there's nothing there. But that doesn't make it any less real. And then he goes on and says, nor does it make it any more real. So he's playing both sides of the fence. He's saying, I go looking for this life essence, and when I go to look for it, there's nothing to find. I can't find anything. And the fact that I can't find anything doesn't make it real, but it doesn't make it non-real either. It's a beautiful observation about the fact that when we are pressing into trying to figure out what our essence is, it escapes us. And the true theologians said, when we go looking for the essence of God, it exists in mystery. The Taoists said, the essence of life exists in dark enigma. Or the other simpler term was, it exists in absence. Or the Buddhists would say it exists in emptiness, right?
So all of this complexity and all of this philosophical backing, I want to take that and put that back into the context that caused some confusion, which was, I think I had asked, how do you know if you're over-identified with a story or a role, or whether whether something is an actual manifestation of your essence? And the example that was housed within, I think, was a family gathering where, you know, you rock up and you're the loud one, or you're the
provocateur, or whatever.
You're the provocateur, yeah, or whatever it is. And how do you know if, you know, you genuinely are the provocateur as part of who you are, or whether you've just latched onto that story because it's been reinforced by you or by your experiences or by people around you?
So I think in that context, what I'm trying to say is you can't dismiss the essence of something as a real phenomena, right? As a real thing.
Say that again.
Well, I can't say there's no apple, right?
Okay.
I can't say there's no orange. I can't say there's no jestness, or there's no bellowness, right? Because there is. What I am reluctant to do now at my age is to become so identified with a role or a story around bellowness that I go, that's bellow. Because your essence is going to, it's not that your essence is a shapeshifter. It's more that the stories always, the narratives always are poking at something that's inevitable. They're pointing to something they can't. They're pointing at the moon. They're pointing at the stars. They're pointing at something that is unreachable through a narrative frame. So we're reaching the limits of what words can achieve, which is why Taoists didn't trust words, right? We're reaching the boundary where we go, words aren't helping us here. So, and if words aren't helping us, then stories aren't helping us. So then becoming so identified with the story, being I'm the provocateur, I'm the black sheep of the family. Really? Are you sure? You know? And so it's just holding the story that we tell about ourselves loosely and being content to sit in the experience. This is probably why I said, what does peanut butter taste like? Sit in the experience of jestness. Just allow the jestness to do whatever it does.
So sit in the experience of being at the family event.
Yeah, you go to the family event and you're there. And sometimes you might be provocative and sometimes you might be deeply gracious. And sometimes you might be stuck in your emotions and be highly reactive. And other times you might be stuck in your head and trying to analyze and psychoanalyze everyone there. And sometimes you might be stuck a little bit in your ego. So you want someone to acknowledge you and to be nice to you because they didn't even give you a hug when you walked in, you know? Or they said something very dismissive about your job or some shit. And you go, well, you're horrible, you know? And so you're stuck in your ego for 2 hours. It's like, yeah, it'll do all of that. I mean, your essence is sitting there and it's not necessarily it's not easy to then say, oh, Jess is reactive, or Jess is always in her head and she's really analytical, or Jess is such a needy bitch. You know, like none of that really helps. Do you know what I mean? It's all hovering around a very fluid dynamic. It's like looking at the ocean, right? Which is down there in front of us, and saying, oh, it's water.
Yeah, okay.
It's water, it's seaweed, it's salt, it's sand, it's sediment, it's algae, it's fish poo, you know? It's like, the water is a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things in the water. Yeah. It's not just, just trying to find a label for it. Something which is immensely complex and immensely vast and immensely deep, and something that has come out of absence, or a deep enigma that has come into a physical form, taken shape, and is a profound mystery. oh, you're just the needy bitch of the family.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, that's way too reductionistic.
Right.
D-
Yes.
That's what I'm trying to say. And I'm trying to say that your essence sits here. So someone at the end of the day goes, well, what can I say about my essence? Well, get in line. Everyone struggles.
Yeah.
It's like, you feel your essence. You live through your essence. You inhabit your essence. It's just hard to speak about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just hard to find words for it.
So let's build a business off the back of speaking.
Well,
about
the fact is, yeah, let's build a business about something that's so esoteric that words can't even explain it. But your essence has it. Your essence, right? This is why we run our courses, and this is why you should do our introductory course. Your essence does express itself. It expresses itself through heart energy, where your heart is an ally, an advocate, and an agent of your essence. So in spaces where, you will find that your heart energy will encourage you or allow you or excite you or animate you to do things which are completely like the babe. I know I use animals all the time, but it's such a good example. The baby kookaburra, as a baby, as a fledgling little chick, was trying to sing. Mm-hmm. It just wanted to laugh. Like it wanted to do that. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I don't think that there's a kookaburra out there that can't, I don't think there's a remedial class for kookaburras that can't sing. Yeah. Maybe there is, This is like the failed kookaburra class. Yeah. I would have been in that one. So it's like your essence wants to do stuff and your heart energy wants you to express that, to find a voice to that, which we call that advocacy, wants to take actions consistent, that we call that agency, right? Reason we built the business Way of the Heart is because people lose their agency doing stuff that has nothing to do with them. They lose their voice, speaking with a secondary voice and not a primary voice, and that they betray the very ally which holds them to their truest self by basically becoming ally to someone else's agenda, someone else's demands for their life, some cultural expectation. So through the heart, working through being an ally, an advocate, and an agent of your essence, you'll start to come into, but you don't come into self-understanding as a concept in your head. You come into self-understanding as a way you walk in the world. It's a posture that you assume. It's a confidence that you have. It's your ability to not have to feel like you have to engage every conversation because you go, that's got nothing to do with me. It's like, my cats sit on the balcony. They look at people building a retaining wall 2 doors down. They don't sit there and go, oh, I really need to get down there and give them a hand. They go, I don't care. Yeah. It's got nothing to do with me. Mm-hmm. And the more you sit in your essence, the more you just go, oh, I don't need to be involved in that. I don't need to, someone said, Way of the Heart should do a series of podcasts on, geopolitics. Let's go, well, we shouldn't. Not that we don't care. It's just that that's not the space we play in. Mm-hmm. That's not what we're about. I'm not here to have a political opinion. Mm-hmm. I have a personal opinion about geopolitics and the state of the world. Sometimes it seeps out, but by and large, Way of the Heart is not agendaed in that space. Mm-hmm. So you're not going to see us commenting on geopolitical events or tragedies across the world because it's not our game. Mm-hmm. It's not the essence of who we are and what we do. Mm-hmm. Now, someone said, well, what is the essence? I'd say, okay, we're getting ineffable again. We're getting into the esoteric again. Yeah. So you feel it, you inhabit it, you act out of it, which is why you just go to the family party and you're just present at the family party. Mm-hmm. And you allow. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if that helps, but
I mean, I find that helpful. We'll see whether you guys find it helpful or not. I think too, with the whole understanding what essence is, at least in my experience, it's been easier for me to identify what is incongruent with who I am.
Yeah.
Because I'll be in a situation, be it a workplace or a social situation, and before I can even put logic or words around it, I'll have a felt sense of this doesn't gel. or
Yeah.
this doesn't feel right, or
Yeah.
something in this just doesn't align
Yes.
with who I am or how I roll.
Yeah.
And I can sit on that and I can tease it out and put logic to it later.
Yeah.
But the very first thing that happens is
A feeling tone.
is a felt sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So someone said to me, "Oh, it's I was in a meeting a couple of weeks ago, and someone said it's really hard to get from your head down into your heart, and I get what they mean, because what they're really saying in that moment is that it's completely sympathise. How do I get my brain into this thing so that this now starts to operate like a brain?
Yeah.
How do I get my heart to be more like my brain so I can make this logical?"
It's like you don't.
And I said to the person, I said, "Okay, so just pause for a minute. What is the color of your prefrontal cortex?" And they gave me a color. They said, "It's this." I said, "Okay, cool." I said, "Now, as a feeling, as a sensing, what is the color of your heart?" And then they actually said red. And I said, "Okay, cool." And it's like everyone in the room is expecting, because what does red mean? And it's like, I don't know. I don't know what red means, because it's a feeling. It was a feeling tone, not a thinking tone. I didn't have some, deep, profound, metaphysical insight into, oh, your heart feels red. That means,
Yeah.
I don't know. She could have said, my heart feels tangerine. I would have gone, wow, cool. I didn't have a clue. What I was trying to point out to her is that you can't get this big prefrontal cortex, this big thinking beast. You can't get your heart to somehow shapeshift and become a prefrontal cortex. It doesn't operate like that. As exactly as you said, it's a sensing, it's a feeling. And sometimes it's a feeling in the negative, exactly like what you said. I know that I'm not meant to do this because I just don't feel right about this. So I said, what do you mean you don't feel right? And sometimes we've called that in the past intuition. I used to go to my grandma's place, and there was a long road, and there was a path that went all the way down the road. And one Christmas I was given a skateboard, and I was like, oh, this is the best. I'm going to grandma's place. I'm going to ride my skateboard down the path. I was so looking forward to it. And the closer we got to my grandmother's place, my mum turned to me and she said, I don't feel right about you riding the skateboard down the path. You're not going to do that. And I was like, what do you mean? Yeah. Why? Because I don't know why. I just don't feel right about it. So it was a feeling, it was an intuitive feeling tone, and there's not a great part of the story that, 3 hours into being at grandma's place, a fruit truck tipped over and 3 tons of, mangoes spilt on the ground, and it killed, an old lady walking with her bloody, no, that didn't happen. There was no freaking accident. No one died. It's just my crazy mum said, you can't do that, because she didn't feel like that was going to be something I was going to be like. So sometimes it operates like that. That's, and people dismiss that. I mean, in society, people have called that that's just woo woo. That's just, that's just soft. It's not soft. It's the most profound element of your being speaking to you wordlessly through a feeling tone, a sensing tone. We call it intuition. We call it lots of different, a sixth sense.
I think this is probably a good point also to differentiate between that feeling or that intuition, that kind of heart space feeling and emotion, because I think it can be easy to conflate that sense of unease with something like anxiety and hypervigilance. Do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, because the other feeling tones that we have are our emotions. Right. So you've got to remember that hard energy is not, we've talked about it almost like faculty separation. Physicality is not emotions, is not physical or mental is not emotional or physical or egoic, blah, blah, blah. We kind of separated them out like they're all very distinct faculties. It's like separating bone and marrow.
Yeah.
It's like separating the bark of the tree from the sap of the tree, from the leaf of the tree, from the branch of the tree, from the roots of the tree. It's a symbiosis of energies, right? We can talk about them distinctly because they all seem to do different things in different ways, but they all are deeply interrelated. It's too reductionistic to say this, and this. We do that simply to talk about energetic centers, but those energetic centers operate in and through one another, right? And so that's why, if you're just saying, how do I live a heart-centered life? It's not like you just become non-emotional, non-cognitive, non-egoic, and non-physical. You still stay all of those things, but you learn to let the heart lead through the emotions with the assistance of your mind, meeting your needs and inhabiting your physicality.
And I think I would encourage people listening to develop a practice of being able to sit and be aware of or to bear witness to those different energies at play.
Yeah.
Because then I think you get a better understanding of what they are, what they feel like, how they manifest, how they show up, what's the story that's attached to them.
Yeah.
Like I think in my youth, because I'm so old now, I really struggled to tell the difference between what's my heart speaking and what's my fear or anxiety or whatever it is. And the more I was able to sit with those different feelings or experiences as they happened, the more I was able to bring awareness and start to differentiate between what those energies looked like and felt like and how they manifested. So if you are in, if you're in a space that brings up that egoic energy, then sit in that, witness that, see what that.
Yeah, because your heart energy will be there as well.
Totally.
This was behind the meaning of Ram Dass, who said, I'd sit there and he'd go, reacting, and what he's saying is there's a part of him that can just sit there and watch you reacting. Like he would say, that is the witness. I mean, in meditation, it's called the witness. The witness is not the reaction. It is the part of you that can see you reacting, knows you're reacting, and is just there for you reacting, right? So, we would just say that's your heart energy that just goes, oh, okay, look at you. Fiery, angry. Okay.
Yeah.
And then, and then there's another part of you that someone says, are you really angry? And like if you stay in your emotional energy, I'm so angry, and then you go, you let the neurochemicals of adrenaline and whatever's flowing through seep out of you. So we're not talking to a neurochemical junkie. And you sort of say, okay, now that all that angry neurochemicals calm down, you really angry? And someone goes, oh, not really. I'm actually just disappointed. Or it will have shifted. Like the emotional tone will have shifted. And the heart will just be there just going, are we okay? I think we're okay. Yeah, we're crazy cats. That's why it's really hard to be reductionistic and go, oh, essence, yes. It's black. It comes with 6 sides and it's, like you were not going to be able to.
Yeah.
This is the formula, get a glass of water, 2 spoons of salt. It's like, it's not a cake you can bake, right? It's mysterious.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. So that covers,
I think
we're trying to cover that question without being as dismissive and saying, what does peanut butter taste like? Trying to be nicer than that.
Okay.
But we still haven't answered that question.
No, we have. I think we have.
What does peanut butter taste like?
That's true.
The essence of peanut butter.
And we're going to turn that question to you. So if you think that you can identify.
I don't want to see any comments about peanut butter.
I kind of do. Are you listening to this point? Let us know. Just comment peanut butter.
Our second bit of loving pushback was actually from Way of the Heart has a resident psychologist who has practiced for many years, part of our team. He's one of our practitioners. And he was listening to our podcast on narrative, and he just said that whilst he loved what we were talking about, he also wanted us to swing back And just to say that in his experience working, especially with people who have been through traumatic events, right, that it's really important to affirm that the event was real, right? And even the way you talk, even the way you, in a fledgling way or in a broken way, or in a somewhat traumatized way, learn to speak about the event. That speech, even though that is a story and it was your way of talking about it, that's still completely valid. And the courage that you found to actually find a way to talk about what happened to you, in no way do we want to invalidate that. There's two things we don't want to do. We don't want you in any way to say we don't believe that what happened to you happened. We absolutely do. Things happen, they're real. That needs to be ticked, right? Whatever it was that happened to you. And obviously he's seen things that have happened to people that are truly horrific. And we acknowledge that. And there's no way that we just go, well, let's just pretend that didn't happen. Those things happen. They're real. They break our hearts as much as they wound and damage and hurt a lot of people. Secondly, if you found a way to talk about that, which is an incredible act of bravery, and an incredible act of courage, and a real big step towards your healing. If you found a way to talk about that, well, then that is completely valid as well, right? What we would be saying to that is that sometimes we actually wouldn't be addressing that at all. And we would be encouraging everyone, if that is you, to have a relationship with a psychologist, to have a relationship with a trained therapist. We don't even pretend to be, we're not playing in that space. We're trying to take people back to a part of them that got lost. We're not playing down line. We're not playing down line with trauma happened, really bad shit happened. You need to talk to someone who's qualified to help you manage that, right? Mm-hmm. That's a psychologist, could be a psychiatrist, could be your doctor, could be a counselor, could be a long-term therapeutic relationship. You need to have that relationship. We don't even pretend to play in that space. What we're doing is we're going back to the part of you that got lost, through the stories that other people told you about who you needed to be, through the stories that you've adopted relatively uncritically, because they were just they were the cultural narrative that you were brought up with. They were the religious framework that you had. They were the expectations of the people around you. They became your expectations, right? And what we see is that people suffer immensely because of that. They suffer immensely because of the movement away from who they are by the adoption and the kind of the grafting in of some foreign narrative to their journey. That's what we're dealing with, and we deal with that because everyone shows up and they start to talk about their enculturation. They start to talk about the way they've been socialized, the expectations of others. This is why we talk about being externally referenced. They start to talk about all the things out there that they've got to attend to. My partner wants me to do this, or we're meant to do that, but I feel like I got to do this. I feel like I got to do that. We're really dealing in that space. We're dealing with the recovery of being and the shedding of the narratives that we've locked and loaded as truth, right? But they're not your truth. They're adaptions, they're additions, they're supplemental, they're provisional. Those truths aren't real, right? If you've then in your journey then had moments of being deeply violated, abused, hurt, if you entered into genuine trauma or genuine psychological, mental illness, right? We're not talking about that. That stuff's real. As much as it's as real as someone who gets a cancer or someone who becomes a diabetic or someone, someone who has a car accident, or, someone who has some kind of physical trauma or emotional trauma is the same, mental trauma is the same.
I think this is
why. Is
that
helpful?
Yeah, I think so. I think this is also why we say that way of the heart is ontological in nature.
Yeah.
And what we mean by that is that it's concerned with being.
Yeah.
Like the being
Completely.
of somebody. We're not psychologists. We don't offer a
We don't.
psychology. We offer some tools in and around narrative or in and around embodied practice, etc., etc. But we're not psychotherapists or psychologists or
No.
any of that. We deal with being.
We are we're a wisdom pathway. We are a wisdom pathway that deals with being, and the big scientific word for matters of being is ontology, right? So we're an ontological wisdom pathway. These other interventions that happen down here, you would say they're epistemological interventions. They're dealing with things that have discombobulated or destroyed or ruined you in terms of your own self-understanding because someone has come in and violated you, right? That takes, the psychologist who works with us, that takes someone with his skill to be able to enter into that with his training, with more than with 40 years of psychological work and or, university education and stuff like that. So if you're one of our friends out there realizing this is going out on the internet, if you've had that, we encourage all the other disciplines. Like we are not saying we're better because we're in competition. We just say we're starting up here at the start of the line, the life journey, the essence piece, the ontological piece. And if somewhere down the line you have had something happen to you and you need to see a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a counselor or a therapist or someone who is adequately trained to help you work through, I don't know, whatever it is, right? Then yeah, you do that. We can be an ally to that and support you in that, but we don't want to ever feel like what happened to you didn't happen, and that we invalidate that by talking about narrative in a way that says the narrative that you're needing to articulate, that how you come to terms with that event is invalid. It is completely valid, Having said that, so we love you and we never meant to hurt anyone in that space. Having said that, you need to find the narrative that fits you. You know what I mean? You need to, if you are the possum getting up at 5 a.m. and hopping in your car and going to work and your eyes hurt and you go, oh, I don't even know how to drive a car. It's like, yeah, because you've got the wrong story, right? And we meet people who are living the wrong story all the time, doing things completely contrary to who they are at an ontological essence level. They're doing shit that's got nothing to do with them. And then they come to us and they tell us the 10 reasons why that can't shift. And we just go, I don't believe that. Now, we're not talking about the traumatic thing that happened. That did happen, and that's different. It's this other stuff that people, and if we didn't see it almost on a daily basis, you wouldn't believe it.
Yep.
The stuff that people say, the stuff that people say that they have to do, and you go,
no, you don't.
You don't have to do that. Who told you that?
Yeah. And I fall. I mean, I see it all the time, and I fall into it all the time as well.
I've been meaning to talk to you about that.
Yeah.
No.
No, but really, I think there is that because we are those sense-making creatures, there is that proclivity to, well, I have to do this because of X, Y, Z, because I've associated a whole bunch of what ifs and assigned a whole bunch of meaning to that, and then I've tied that to, part of my perceived value, and it is good to be able to step into that and go, that's all actually provisional. That's all negotiable. That's all out there.
Yeah.
And a lot of that probably doesn't actually have a lot to do with who you are.
Yeah.
In your being.
Yeah. You see it, we're in the Winter Games at the moment, Winter Olympic Games, right? And you see it with people who are so accustomed to winning, and then they go in an event and they miss the ski jump, and it's like, I get the disappointment in the moment. So I'm not an unfeeling person, although I was never an Olympian. So I get that it's their life, right? And then you see other people and they kind of go, oh, okay. you kind of feel like someone is. There was one guy who missed a moguls thing, took his skis off and just walked away.
Yeah.
Walked off the field into the wilderness.
Into the
guy
distance.
who won was down there waiting. It's like, is he coming down? No, he's chucked his skis, he's chucked his poles, and he's just walked off. And you just go like, he probably was meant to win. It probably is a major devastation that he didn't win.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you see other people like Scotty James who didn't win, and he goes, I'm sure he's really the Australian snowboard half-pipe guy. He didn't get the gold. He was always meant to get the gold. He didn't get the gold. He got beaten again and he got silver. And yet he's going around to people, connecting with them. You know, he's a multimillionaire, so, you know, life probably isn't that bad for him. But you know what I mean? It's like, you can even have this story about like, I'm meant to win.
Yeah.
It doesn't just have to be bad people. Bad people said bad shit about you. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's not just, you know, sometimes I think we're coming from the bottom of the ledge. People have told you horrible things and you're this beaten down creature. It could be that you just have won your whole freaking life and you now have this thing that if I don't win, what? I'm not even going down to the bottom of the mountain if I don't win. You know what I mean? Like, if I don't win, the world has come to a freaking end. It was not meant to happen like this, you know? It's like kind of having a tantrum that you didn't win. It's like, dude, if you don't always win, life isn't always about being the winner. You know, I mean, you know, the old cliches about men, you know, real men don't cry. We do. We're meant to. You know? Sometimes shit's happened to me and I've just gone and sat on the step, started bawling like a baby. Rung up my best mate and gone, oh, mate, you okay, mate? It's like, he goes, do you need me to come over now? It's like, you know, my kids have poked out the window and gone, Mum, there's something really wrong with Dad. You know, like, there's a problem. Houston, we have a problem. But my dad would be going, no, you never cry. You don't cry in front of anyone. You know? I remember sitting, a real story, right? This is true. I remember sitting with my dad and my sister after my middle sister had passed away. She passed away 2 years ago from cancer at 62, way too young. I know if you're 23 and you're listening to this, you think 62, that's old. But, you know, when you get here, it doesn't feel old. And Jen passed away. And my dad didn't have words for it because he's part of the 50s generation, 40s, 50s generation. They don't do that stuff, right? And at the same time that my sister passed away, he also had to surrender his dog. He had a little dog called Molly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite an ugly dog, but it was his best friend. It's got an overbite and it's quite a funny looking dog. But he couldn't look after Molly anymore, so he had to give it to someone else. And it was funny because we were sitting around and we were talking about my sister, and my mum had passed away as well. And my dad could talk about that really composed. And then he said, and I had to give Molly away, and his voice cracked, and it was like,
and that was the thing that,
because that was the disarming thing. It was Jen and it was Mum. But the thing that just broke the camel's back. So, you know, the key that unlocked the door to his emotions was Molly.
Was the dog.
You know, and that was what undid his social narrative that men don't cry. I lost my dog. You know?
Right.
And everyone went, oh, wow, dude, you know, it's like it's a country song now. You know, I lost my girl, I lost my dog. You know,
you just got to get in your pickup truck and.
You know, everyone cries in a good country and western song. You know, and he did. He broke down, right? And he gathered himself really quickly because the story is that men don't do that. So that vulnerability, we don't let that show. That's a nonsense narrative, right? But it's governed his life. It's governed his whole life. You know, and we don't want you to do that either. So they're bullshit stories. But your story about, if you've got a story about something that really happened to you, yeah, well, we're here for you, and we would support you getting whatever support you need, and we'd encourage you to go and get that support.
Yeah. Cool. And yeah, thanks to those who commented and gave us feedback, and we love hearing it. I don't know, I like this stage where we're able to talk to it and to feedback. It makes it feel like we're more of a community of people. So
yeah, it's good. We appreciate you guys. We've dealt with those too.
So.
Luckily we didn't have 3 people comment.
Yeah.
We'd be here all day.
Whatever would we do?
What would we do?
Okay, amazing.
Take care.
We'll catch you in the next episode.
Okay, bye.
Thank you for listening to Heart Riffing. If today's conversation resonated, you can find more of our work, including courses, mentoring, and workshops, at www.wayoftheheart.com.au or on our Instagram, Way of the Heart Official. We'd love to hear your thoughts, reflections, or questions, so please always feel free to message or comment. We look forward to seeing you next time.